Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Charles, and welcome you guys to another episode of the Dreamerspro Show, where we cover everything from sports, hot topics, classic debates, and entertainment, and we give you guys a fresh perspective on things now we see them. We have a very serious show for you guys here today that we definitely want you guys to stick around for. So please make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, let me get into this show here. I believe it was 36 to 48 hours ago. A video was published on CNN, and the video was surrounding an image that I guess a bunch of reporters or a reporter or researcher, whoever it was able to unearth of Jerry Jones during a rally against blacks, and I'll get into the exact details of that a little bit later. I saw the video, and for a moment I sat back and I said, should I post this on the community board? Should I post this on the community board? Should we try to get a sense of what some of our viewers are going to think about this? I decided to kind of continue to think on it because I wasn't exactly sure yet what angle we were going to use to address it if people wanted us to talk about it. So a little bit of time went by, and we decided not to we decided not to touch on it. Then yesterday we saw that it started to pick up a little bit more headwind, and people started to, tailwind, people started to talk about it. And yesterday they brought it to the attention of Stephen A. Smith on ESPN First Take. But before I get into his comments, I want to quickly read a little bit about what we're going to be discussing today, and as a matter of fact, what he was reacting to from a Washington Post report. And what we're going to do is we're going to put up the image of the subject matter while I read a little bit of this. So we're just going to put that up now. On the first day of classes at North Little Rock High, a crew-cut sophomore named Gerald Wayne Jones found his spot amongst a phalanx of white boys who stood in the front entrance and blocked the path of 6 black students attempting to desecrate the school. In a photograph taken at the scene, Jones could be seen standing a few yards from where the 6 black students were being jostled and repelled with snarling racial slurs by ringleaders of the mob. At one point, a black student named Richard Lindsay recalls someone in the crowd put a hand on the back of his neck. A voice behind him said, "I want to see how a N feels." The ruffian hostility succeeded in turning away the would-be new enrollees. The confrontation occurred 65 years ago on September 9th, 1957, during the same month that a higher profile integration effort was taking place at Little Rock High in the capital city a few miles away. The story of Little Rock 9, when President Dwight Eisenhower dispatched federal troops to escort the trailblazing black students past the spitting hordes, is regarded as a pivotal moment in the civil rights movement. It overshadowed the ugly events unfolding contemporaneously at Jones's high school on the other side of the Arkansas River, an episode mostly lost to history, though not entirely. The photograph taken by William P. of the Associated Press shows a young Jones wearing a striped shirt, craning for a better view, looking like a little burrhead. As he said in a recent interview with the Washington Post, acknowledging his presence on the steps that day, he was 1 month from turning 15. He had been bulking up by lifting weights and going through a 2 days since August, trying to make the school's football B team. The coach, Jim Albright, had warned there might be trouble and said he didn't want to see any of you not heads near the front of that school tomorrow. That directive did not deter Jones. He showed up near the conflict's epicenter, stationed on the top landing near the school's double leaf entry doors. A face in the rear row of the human bulwark, intent on keeping people out because of the color of their skin. Jones said he was there only to watch, not participate. I don't know that I or anybody anticipated or had a background of knowing what was involved. It was more curiosity, he said. So that's what that article said there. I know it took a little bit of time, but I want to take my time here today. So this is what they were discussing on ESPN First Take. And when Stephen A. Smith started to talk, for the very first time, I was absolutely jarred by the level of self-loathing I was watching on ESPN First Take. So what we want to do is we want to play his comments for you, and then we're going to come back and react to it. Take a listen to that here.
Stephen A., your reaction to all of this?
I'm pretty pissed off. And let me say this. I'm pissed off, but not for reasons that people would think. I'm very, very fond of Jerry Jones, and I'm not hiding that from anybody. Is his record perfect? No. But I'm pissed off because he doesn't deserve what just happened. He doesn't deserve it. One report, our report, said he was 14 years old. Yeah. Another report said he was 15 years old. At minimum, that's 65 years ago. You're going to bring up a picture of Jerry Jones standing at this protest. No question, what was happening is not something that anybody as a black person should be appreciative about. We had 6 students at that particular North Little Rock High School that was trying to desegregate the school.
No one should be okay with it.
Nobody should be okay with that.
Regardless of
race.
We
understand that. We get all of that. We also understand what we as black people and as black folks, black men have to deal with. And by the way, to some degree, we still deal with a lot of things, and we all know it. Mm-hmm. Racism is alive and well. Bigotry and prejudice is alive and well. We get all of that. What I'm saying is, here's the part that bothers me. You want to get on Jerry Jones and his track record, fine. In 2003 or so, you know what? You should have hired, Dennis Green shouldn't have got an interview on the phone. It should have been an in-person interview. Right. You should have followed the letter of the rule of the law as it pertained to the Rooney Rule. He wanted Bill Parcells, universally recognized one of the greatest football coaches we've ever seen. It was clear he wanted Bill Parcells. Nobody else was going to have a chance of getting that job. That's what he wants to do. You want to malign him for that? Fine. You want to point out that he's one of 7 black NFL owners that's never hired an African-American as a head coach? Fine. Do all of that. Attack him for that. Go ahead. Yeah. No problem. I see a plethora of African-Americans employed by him. I see black players who played for him who rave about this man and what he's done for them on a personal level. But if you want to go by his hiring record when it comes to head coaches, no problem. Can't go the executive route because we know it's him. You know what I'm saying? He want to be the president, the GM, the owner. He want to do everything. And then he's got his children that he leans on as well. So he can't go the executive route. But you want to get on him about the head coaches, fine. But you're going to bring up a photo of him when he was 14, 15 years old, 65 or 66 years ago. This is where cancer culture gets into the mix. And you're making an attempt to eradicate him, what he stands for, and all he has done. Yeah. I will remind you, we've had Senator Robert Byrd, who passed away a few years ago. That was a member of the KKK. We've had other politicians, whose record, who didn't want the segregate, who didn't want desegregation. Right. The George Wallaces of the world, the Bull Connors of the world, and others, okay? We've seen all of this. We've had elected officials on Capitol Hill that are implementing and legislating policy that affects our lives. But we're going to go to Jerry Jones. And by the way, I don't have a problem with the photo. Yep. I don't have a problem. If he was 30, 35, 40 years old, that's different. Right. 14, 15 years old. 14, 15 years old. Right. So now some folks are going to get to look at Jerry Jones, and who's from Arkansas. This is the South. We understand what the South represented.
1957.
You understand what I'm saying? Remember, when slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, you talk about 1863 or what have you. What did Dr. Martin Luther King talk about? Well, you didn't give black folks nothing. You ridded slavery from them, but you gave them no land. But you gave white peasants from Europe land in the West and the Midwest, okay? So we understand from an historical perspective where it all comes from, what the South represented at least once upon a time, and in some people's eyes still to this day. But we're going to lean on somebody when he was 14, born and raised in the South, and we're going to pick it up 66 years later to say, you know something?
Yeah.
You ain't hire a black coach.
You know, as I was watching him speak yesterday, I was in I was like in total amazement. I couldn't believe what I was hearing out of his mouth. And I came to the conclusion that I want to share with you guys, which is this. I am 100% convinced that Stephen A. Smith has zero self-respect. He has absolutely zero self-respect. No self-respecting person, no matter your race, no self-respecting person would ingest that type of information and respond in that manner. Stephen A. Smith spent more time talking about how disgusted he was of this report that unearthed a 65-year-old image instead of being infuriated at what actually took place. That speaks to a person's mentality. You must have zero self-respect for yourself if that is the angle at which you're looking at that particular situation there. You have none. You have none. There are examples of other communities that when they get a whiff, I said a whiff of disrespect towards their race and their community, they're up in arms, ready to correct it immediately. But in the case of Stephen A. Smith just now, I'm amazed that he wasn't offended by what he saw. As a matter of fact, he was like, oh, well, he's my friend. What? He's your friend. He's your friend. After you saw that, he's your friend. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But none of this really surprises me, to be quite honest with you. None of this. Stephen A. Smith, I noticed, has more energy to talk about Kyrie Irving, to talk about various, when it comes to that, he has all the might. He has all the words. He has all of those things. Stephen A. Smith, let me ask you a question. If you were more disgusted by the fact that they unearthed that image, why didn't you take that same stance with Kyrie Irving? Why didn't you say you're totally disgusted at the people that are trying to make this into a story? Why didn't you take that angle? You know why you didn't take that angle? Because for you, you enjoy criticizing your people to make others feel better. You enjoy it. You don't even have to think about it. It's like your second nature. Stephen A. Smith has zero respect for zero. Forget about all of that stuff he's up there saying. He has zero because his default mindset just informed his position on this Jerry Jones matter. That's his default mindset you just saw. Default mindset is what I mean by that is naturally the way he thinks without even realizing it. When you see him coming up and he's snapping out of what he normally thinks. I don't believe a single word that he says because there are too many examples of him disrespecting blacks. I'll give you guys an example of this. Yesterday, my wife and I were out for dinner. We're speaking to an older couple. They spend some of their time in Nigeria and they spend some of their time in United States, Miami. Affluent, they do well for themselves. And these are season ticket holders of Miami Heat games. And we're talking. And we're like, yeah, we do sports media, basketball. Oh, really? Blah, 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 blah. Start talking. And then somehow, some way, we started talking about the shows that the husband, the guy liked to watch, sports shows. And he said he always used to record all of ESPN First Takes episodes because he enjoyed listening to Stephen A. Smith. I want you guys to listen to this example very carefully. He said he used to always record it. That was one of the shows he enjoyed watching. He said, but then something happened. He said there was an incident where, this is a Nigerian man saying this, there was an incident where he was talking about, I believe it was a football player by the name Matt LaFleur, if I'm not mistaken. And he said, Stephen, I think all you remember this, and he said he was purposefully mispronouncing the gentleman's last name. I think the guy was French, if I'm not mistaken, French heritage or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And he said that at that time, he thought that that was very wrong. He thought that that was very wrong. And from that point on, Stephen A. Smith was on thin ice with him. He said, because you can't go around disrespecting people like that by purposefully mispronouncing their last names. He said, however, the last straw with him was when he, on purpose, disrespected those Nigerian players by purposefully mispronouncing their last names. And he was doing it to get a laugh out of people that are outside of his own. He's willing to dance it up, embarrass his own heritage just to make other groups laugh. He said the minute that happened, he immediately cut off ESPN from his package, cable pack. He said he was done. This was a staunch supporter. He said the moment he did that, it was over for him. Now, what's the moral of this story? There are two. The first one is an example of what I've been talking about with this guy. The second one, what you just saw was a person that has a high level of self-respect and self-worth and self-value, that respects who they are, respects their parents, respects their heritage, and will not stand for anybody to disrespect them no matter their color. And he said, you know what? That's the line from me. I'm not going to sit here, no matter how much I may find you entertaining, and continue to patronize you by watching your show. I'm done with you. You crossed the line. That is what you call self-respect. And that should have been the approach Stephen A. Smith should have taken it for that situation. For you to sit up there and take that position was an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment. Absolute embarrassment. Absolute. That's what you're talking about? If it happened 60, so what? It happened. There are crimes that have been committed 50, 60 years ago, and people are still being thrown into jail today for what they did decades ago. What's your point, my guy? What's your point? This guy has zero self-respect. When I say zero, zero. Forget about all of that stuff he's on there talking about. I'm for the black. It's all BS, nonsense. It's BS. Because if you is for the cause as you say you are, when you see something like that disrespectful and degrading to your own race, you stand up and say something. Instead, you sit up there talking about me and him are friends. My guy, something is wrong with you. When you saw the situation with Kyrie Irving, a lot of people that Kyrie thought was his friends stood up and tell him and say, hold up a minute. Before I'm your friend, I come from my community. And I draw the line. I chose sides. I chose my community over our friendship. They chose sides. They chose sides. You had others that were confused. They were afraid. How you 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 million in and you still afraid? How? 2, 3, 4, 5, 600 million and you still afraid? My guy, it's sad. It's sad. You ain't got no other way to make money? If they're not cutting that check for you, can't get it no other way? His statements. I was cooking and I was listening to it in the background. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing coming out of this guy's mouth. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't. Let that have been something relating to Kyrie or somebody. Oh my, he will have a lot to say. He will have a whole lot to say. A whole lot. He doesn't even think when it comes time to reacting to that type of stuff. But this one, now all of a sudden you want to have a nuanced conversation about it. I couldn't believe it. That take was an embarrassment to yourself. You should be ashamed. We are ashamed for you. We are ashamed for you. We're ashamed for you. It's embarrassing. We're ashamed for you. How can you see something like that and that's the first line of thinking that comes to your mind? The default position. And you upset. How they going to do this to this man? Bro, we're going to leave it right there. Whatever you guys think, please leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. We catch you guys on the next show. Peace.